you guys on the inside. I'll tell Lori to come in, stay on the line.
She's gonna.
And then you can start. We'll wait for Lori to give you the.
Yeah, get Lori set up. We're going to go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody good to go?
Yep.
Yeah, we're gonna do
Good scramble. We get it.
that. Yes. We did do that. John, you ready to start?
Hey. I got enough paper here to sink a ship.
Ready to start whenever you are.
As soon as Lori comes, we're all set. Lori's dad used to be one of my partners in work.
She texted
Right.
me that we're live.
Eh?
She texted me that we're live. We're ready to go.
Oh, we're ready to go. Okay. Good morning. My name is Don Popo and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment for the meeting of March the 9th, 2022. I'm your chairman today and I'd like to introduce our committee. Consists of David Bishop, Jerry Walker, Walter McKechnie, and we have Alana is the planning technician, so she controls the volume and she controls who speaks and when you speak, so it must be very nice to her. And Jeff Isles, our secretary treasurer, is also part of this meeting today. So a notice to all those in attendance that this meeting will be live streamed on YouTube and recorded. Please note that the recording will be linked to the municipal website following the meeting. It's a public hearing to consider 5 applications for a minor variance to the municipality zoning bylaw. It's the committee's responsibility to consider all information received to date regarding the requested variances and to hear and consider any comments or questions provided by these applications. Any variances granted by the committee must meet 4 tests, which are very clearly designed in the Planning Act. The requested variances must be minor in nature, desirable for the property development of the land, comply with the general intent of the official plan, and comply with the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Please note if anyone wishes to be notified of a decision, please make a request in writing to the municipality. Are there any members who have a conflict of interest in any of these proposals today? Please record Mr. Gerald Walker.
That'd be the last file,
That'll be
under
the
the
last
lands
file
of Walker.
presented. Yeah. So
So
you
I'll
will
be-
excuse yourself at the time.
Yes, that's gonna be the last file of the day I take, so I'll be disengaging
luego.
and gone. See you
Okay.
next month.
This meeting and future committee of adjustment meetings will be hosted by electronic participation format. Actually, I have to back up one here because I have a conflict with the first application, which is the Gardens of Halliburton. So I will be turning the program over to Mr. McKechnie, who chaired that particular meeting, and I'll excuse myself, but just for that one case. Any oral or written submissions received in advance of the meeting will be verbally read aloud at the time the application is considered. Information regarding live streaming of the meeting is available on the Municipality of Dysart et al. Website. All persons who have pre-registered will have an opportunity to present or ask questions about the proposals, and please direct all your questions and comments to the chair. Each registered person has up to 5 minutes to provide comments or ask questions. Once finished speaking, the meeting host will mute their microphone. And we intend to enforce that. We don't have to be right on the nose of 5 minutes, but we're not going to let it drag on forever. Once the registered attendees have presented comments on applications, registered attendees may wish to speak and participating in the Zoom meeting by video will need to click the raise hand button to ask a question. Raise hand button is on the right side of the Zoom meeting screen under the participants lab. Okay, the first case that we're dealing with is the file D13MV 2021-003 Gardens of Halliburton Inc. And I will be excusing myself from this meeting. I would turn it over to Mr. McKechnie. We have to do one thing first. So we have to adopt the minutes of the meeting of February 9, 2022. Can someone move? David Bishop and second by Gerald Walker. Okay, I will be back at the conclusion of the discussion on the first case.
So thank you, everybody. And excuse me, Walt, if you don't mind, I don't mind speaking right now.
Go ahead, sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, given that Chairman Papa has declared a conflict of interest in this file, we're going to need to appoint a committee, or sort of the committee is going to need to appoint a chair for this file. As per the previous meeting, Councilor McKechnie has agreed to chair this file, subject to support from the remaining committee members. If the committee supports this motion, a resolution has been provided for your attention.
I so move.
I'll tell you when. I'll come out. Yeah. Well, excuse me, Councilor McKechnie, could you read the resolution to appoint yourself chair?
Okay. Be it resolved that Councilor McKechnie be appointed to the chair meeting for March 9th, 2022. And show of hands there, yeah, for approved, Jerry Walker and Dave Bishop. Thank you. So the first application on the agenda is the Gardens of Haliburton D13-MV-2021-003. If the applicant or agent is in attendance, can the meeting host please add them to the meeting and load their presentation and unmute their microphone so they can explain their application? Is Bill in attendance?
Yes, Alana's bringing him forward right now.
Bill has
Thank you.
been brought forward to attendance.
Excuse me, Bill, can you unmute yourself and start your video?
Is that better to come through?
Loud and clear.
Success.
Hey, go ahead, Bill. How you doing?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you very much. I represent the Gardens of Haliburton, the retirement residence at the north end of town. And the purpose of this variance is to get the proper parking ratio as we're planning the second phase of our development to increase the number of suites in the building. We've had very good reception from the seniors of the town of Haliburton. First off, we have reviewed the staff report and we agree with the contents. A bit of background, we were before this committee in 2018 for a few items, including parking variance. And at that time, the committee suggested a ratio of 0.82, which we agreed to at the time, knowing that 0.5 to 0.6 was the correct ratio. And we put in the 0.82, and that would give us adequate spaces for the future second phase, which we're contemplating now. And then at that time, we said we would do additional studies and such to support this, which we have. So to support this application, we submitted the original traffic study from January 2019, which is included in our site plan agreement, which recommended a 0.50 ratio. We did actual parking counts through the months of November and December. At that time, there were 50 residents. So 50 of the 66 suites were occupied. And then we prorated that to the 100 suites. And then we estimated that the parking ratio with 100 suites would be 0.54, which is in the range that we were contemplating originally. And then we also submitted a parking study of 8 similar buildings to the Gardens of Haliburton. And those all had parking ratios between 0.5 and 0.6. So we're very comfortable with this ratio, that this is the correct number. And we're the last ones that want to have a shortage of parking. So we were convinced the number is correct. Just a fast note, there was a question from a resident, I believe in the condominium across the road, about the trees in our southwest corner. When we did our original site plan, the Ministry of Transportation required us to lower the grade on that corner for better vehicular visibility. And so we pulled the grade back, built a retaining wall. We did some minor trimming at the bottom of the trees, but just to let you know, there's no further trimming of those trees. And I think she does like those maple trees. Short, but I think I've covered the points, so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions? Mr. Bishop, go right ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would trust that the gentleman address this question. Are the ratios that you speak of in regard to these other communities, were they ratios that were set by zoning, or would you come to their analysis by their actual use?
Mr. Chairman, it was actually both, and they are actually in the zoning bylaws of it. Now, for example, Perry Sound, a smaller community, we have a 0.50 ratio in the zoning bylaw, and it's much, it's certainly adequate for our purposes. We have small towns in Simcoe, Wasaga Beach, and that. So it's actually both. It's in the zoning bylaw, and it's adequate for us.
Yes, Mr. Walker.
I'd just like to comment that I reviewed the application and heard, and I would be fully supportive to make a motion that we accept the proposal as proposed.
Is there a seconder for that? Yes, Jeff?
Sorry, I was on mute there. Before we proceed to a motion, Mr. Martimet did reference a public comment that was received. So if you'll allow me, I'll read that out right now.
Okay.
So an email was received.
Just one second. Sorry to interrupt you, Jeff. Mr. Bishop had another question, I believe.
Okay.
Is that
Well,
right, Mr.?
What I'm concerned about here is if the applicant's submissions is entirely what he has set forth in terms of the written material in the engineering report and his submission at this point in time, I don't know how the applicant has addressed the 4 tests that are to be applied in regard to the application. If the submission is just on the evidence that we've got here, then I guess we have to defer to whatever the decision of our advisors are as to whether or not the applications meet the 4 tests. It's a pretty bare bones presentation of meeting the requirements of whether or not the intent of the bylaw is met in the policies of the official plan, and whether or not the matter is minor in nature. So it's really up to the applicant to make these submissions to prove his case. Now, if he's done, then we'll have to rely on whatever the comments are that come from our planning department.
Okay, Jeff, would you like to comment on that, please?
I'm happy to. Perhaps before I do, I just wondered if Mr. Martinet would like to respond to that. If not, I'm happy to just reference my planning report.
Well, Mr. Chairman, through I believe we've submitted adequate information, and also I believe it was referenced in the planning report. I'm just trying to find it, but maybe Jeff could do it better than I could on that issue.
Yeah, thank you. And just to point out, I'm not a proponent for this, so these are my comments. But staff have reviewed the submission and believe it generally conforms to provincial policy and generally conforms to our official plan based on the submission of the traffic count, based on the submission of the traffic impact study. Staff have also attended the site, and during our site visits, there appeared to be lots of parking available on each visit. Staff do have concerns that if there is lack of parking in the future, that spillover parking may occur on the adjacent highway or the adjacent municipally maintained road. But based on the evidence provided on each of our site visits, it looks like what's being proposed is adequate. As I think it's a leap of faith, and I defer the decision to the committee, but based on our site visit and what's been provided, I think this is an adequate request.
Thank you. Any other questions? So could we have a mover for this?
Excuse me,
Yes.
Chair, just as per before, do you mind if I read out the public
Yeah.
comments that were received? Mr. Martin
Sorry,
already
yeah,
addressed
we're
them, but
Or
I
I
do want
really
to
interrupted
read
you.
them out.
Sorry about that.
An email was received from the neighboring property owner's daughter on behalf of her mother, Effie McPherson, who lives in the adjacent Granite Cove condominium. She had concerns with regards to the large tree being trimmed or removed, and she gave reasons to support that. However, as per Mr. Martin's comments, they do not plan on removing that tree. So I think that satisfies Mrs. McPherson's comments and concerns. With regards to conditions, there isn't really any conditions being proposed by staff. There's one basic condition being proposed, and that's basically that the parking space variance requirements are as shown as generally on the property sketch attached to and will form part of that decision. So that's the only condition being proposed today, unless the committee has something they'd like to add.
Yes, Mr. Bishop?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering whether or not there were some conditions that were recommended in the traffic report that is part of these submissions. Were there not conditions set forth in that regard?
Yes, Bill, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you, the main purpose of the traffic report, and 98% of it relates to the traffic counts on the road on Sunnyside and on the highway on the west side and the parking entrance. They were just confirming in their report that in their experience that 0.50 was the correct parking ratio for this type of building. And this is a traffic expert that's giving evidence in his report.
Yes, Mr. Bishop?
I'm gonna have to go through it again, but I thought there were some indications of some required signages.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes, go ahead, Bill, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, through you, this was not in the traffic report. This was in our site plan agreement. It asked for 6 things to be done. 2 of them were ours, and we did those. That was pulling the grade back, building a retaining wall to achieve an easier visibility around that corner. The second 2 were for the Ministry of Transportation, and they were going to install signage and traffic lights down Highway 18, so people coming southbound would slow down. They have installed these. And then the last 2 were for the town to build a sidewalk along the north side of Sunnyside, which we contributed the money for back in 2019. And also the town would do traffic calming measures. So the 2 items that are outstanding are the town items to be done.
And I can speak to those, Councillor McKechnie, if you like. They are in the works, the community safety zone and the sidewalks being extended to the site. That was discussed during the budget process for the municipality this year. And I believe that is in the works for 2022.
Great, okay. All right. Is there, is the meeting's now open to the public? Is there any public comments? Is there any registered attendees that'd like to make any comments?
No, there's no registered attendees today to speak to this file. The only public comment was the one I read.
Okay. And does the committee have any further questions to ask? Mr. Walker?
No, sorry, not a question, just to reiterate my motion to accept this application as presented.
Okay, could
I will second the motion.
Thank you very much. So I'll read the resolution. A variance to the provisions of section 5.4.15.8 to permit a lot in the R3-8 zone to have a minimum parking space requirement of 0.6 spaces per dwelling unit as opposed to the minimum required 0.82 spaces. We'd like to have a vote on that. Yes, in favor, yes. So it's granted. Thank you very much. And would you like to approve what proposed conditions in respect to this file, please, Secretary?
And I did read the one condition, so if the committee has voted, that condition has been included. And as I said before, the only condition was just that the variance was as shown on the property sketch. That will form part of the decision.
Okay, all right. So
Thank you. I will just step away. I'm going to go advise Chairman Popple that he can return to the meeting.
all right, thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Bill, and good luck with the new addition there.
Yeah,
You'll
all the
be
best.
seeing more. Sorry.
Get the shovels in the ground.
When spring comes, whatever that is this year. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm back. Are you guys all ready to carry on?
Fair.
Okay. Second case is D13 MV 2022-0002, Lands of O'Neill, Township of Harcourt. Is Mr. O'Neill a part of the discussion yet? Is he live in? Do we need him yet? I'll get him to start it off.
Good morning. Yes, I am in. I hope everybody can hear me. It's Kevin.
I can
O'Neill
hear you, but I
speaking.
can't see you.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can change that. How's that?
Oh, yeah, there you are. Okay.
There we go. Okay.
Well, welcome to the Committee of Adjustment. I had to take a pass on my name is Don Popple. I don't know if you listened to the introduction or not, but
Yeah.
I had a conflict with the first case, so that's why I departed. So perhaps you could just give us a quick synopsis of your application, Mr. O'Neill, and I'm sure we'll have some questions for you and see what we can work out.
Sure, I can do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've actually worked for a municipality for 33 years, but I've never taken part in one of these Committee of Adjustment meetings. So this is all new to me. But
Well,
I'll
this
see.
is all new to us too.
Okay. I'll see what I can do. Yeah, actually, so we're applying for two minor variances, basically just due to the shape of the court or Ann Road that we live on. And I guess the necessity or potential necessity of having to drill a well at some point. So in order to keep the area between our existing cottage and the potential garage large enough to get a well drilling machine in, I think it's that is the main reason that we're applying for this variance, just so that we can keep the building or the clearance there enough in case that day ever comes. I don't think there's really a lot more to add.
You're in a pretty tight spot there, are you?
Well, it's just yeah, following all the setbacks and so on that's required. Yeah, it's just, I think it's just the shape of the road, to be honest, because if it was just a square and we're at the end of the court,
Right.
it's
well, we have a
really
map, yeah.
Yeah, it's really only the one corner of the potential garage that we need the variances for. The rest of it comply.
Okay, do we have any questions to this gentleman, Mr. Bishop?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering, he's expressed that he's thinking about drilling a well and that he wants to make room for a well drilling equipment. But if a well is on the table, why not go ahead and drill the well? Then it's in place. And then you can put your garage to comply with the setbacks.
Well, we're currently using a water system now that's working fine. This is just in case. I guess that's the issue. We haven't had any issues at all, but I just want to make sure that there's going to be room for that if need be.
But if Mr.
Yeah,
Chair,
and
if a
he
well
needs
was
to-
never
Go ahead, David.
needed, then the building is always there. And anyway, it's a bit of a back and forth situation. The need for the well is not there right now and might apparently never be there. But once you grant this application, then the building is there and in reduced setbacks. Bit of a back and forth situation.
Where would the well be drilled, Mr. O'Neill?
Well, again, yep, due to all the requirements for a well, it would have to be on the lake side of the cottage, and keeping in mind our septic system. Yeah, our septic system, our neighbor's septic system. Yeah, we have a very small area that is even possible to do that. So.
Okay, any other questions for the gentleman? David?
I would ask our Secretary Treasurer whether or not there's been any comments from the fire side in terms of an aspect of if there was a problem with fire there, would we be able to get by all of the buildings if they met this setback and provide the necessary service in that regard?
You comment on that, Jeff?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair. Notice was provided to all required agencies on February 22nd. As of the date of this report, we have not received any comments from the public. We have not received any comments from fire, but they were not circulated on this. I did want to bring to your attention that we didn't include comments received from Public Works in the report, but I have received verbal comments from the Director of Public Works that they have no concerns with the requested setback. It will not interfere with road maintenance.
Any other further questions for this gentleman? Mr. Walker?
No, I don't have any questions. I don't see any issues with the application.
Okay. Mr. McCagney?
No, I have no questions either. I think everything is fine. Thank you.
Mr. Bishop?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would point out, I guess, to the benefit of the applicant there, that the lot is at the end of a cul-de-sac, so it wouldn't appear that he's going to be interfering with much traffic or in regard to proximity to the road. So that is certainly to his advantage of this particular application.
Would someone care to make a motion with respect to the application? Mr. Isles?
All right, through you, Chair. Before we proceed, staff have recommended 4 conditions on this. Would you like me to read those out?
What did he say?
I'm recommending 4 conditions. Would you like me to
Okay,
read the
go ahead,
conditions?
man.
out?
Give us the conditions.
Okay. And the first 3 are standard conditions for waterfront lots. Basically, the first one says that the variance applies to the garage as shown on the property sketch dated January 24th, 2022, and that any future variance is granted or any encroachment beyond that variance in the future will require another minor variance. The second proposed condition relates to the County of Halliburton Shoreline Tree Preservation Bylaw. It outlines that the injury or destruction of trees within 30 meters of the high water mark is not permitted. There are exemptions shown in that bylaw that can be reviewed. And as always, as per the official plan, we recommend further additional native shoreline planting where possible. Condition number 3 notes that during construction, proper site preparation and construction methods should be used to prevent sedimentation of the adjacent lake. Sediment fencing is to be installed down gradient from the construction site. And last, condition number 4, prior to the pouring of footings, the applicant must supply confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the private garage, once constructed, complies with both the rear lot line setback and the street setback if approved by the committee today.
Someone can make a motion?
Can I comment on?
Certainly, yep.
Yeah, sorry, I was just reading over these conditions, or I guess they're comments and recommendations. I just, the last one there, that number 4, does seem a little odd, but you know, in 2018, we paid for a survey, and the stakes are still in the ground. Let's see, prior to we had to pay for a site plan using the existing survey information with the sites that are in the ground, or with the stakes that are in the ground. And we had to pay for variance to do these things. And is there not somebody that on staff that I could work with that could say yes or no that these pegs where we're gonna stake the garage can fall? I mean, it's the stakes are there, the measurements are there. I don't understand. It's just the difficulty of trying to get a surveyor at this point is unbelievable, because we've been through this once before, and then the added costs as well, just to use a tape measure and mark these stakes. That's my only comment.
Do you care to comment on that, John?
Yeah, I'm happy to comment. This is a recommendation, so ultimately it's the committee's decision. However, this is a standard condition we recommend for all setback variances. As the committee may know, we from time to time we receive minor variances where there have been measurement errors in the past, and this is one way just to ensure that the building is being put in the location as proposed and that it complies with that setback. So it's up to the committee if they want to include it, but this is a standard condition for setback variances.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. O'Neill?
is there an opportunity to work with staff on that? Like just to have these marked? Like I'm, you know, I just have that question versus going to a survey.
I quite understand your problem, and we comment on that, Jeff?
Yeah, I should have mentioned, because we don't have anybody that's qualified to take professional measurements on staff. So staff in the past have also taken the measurements as best they could, but they have proven not to be correct at times. So that's why for the last 6 or 7 years, we've been recommending this condition. I just wanted to mention that we don't have a qualified person on staff to do those measurements. Again, it's up to the committee how you wish to proceed.
Mr. Bishop?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I would address through the chair that, you know, we have all kinds of situations where the variance is applied for and is granted, and then we find out later on that the building needs another variance because it's not put in the exact right spot. And that goes on as a continuum in this township. And that's one reason why these conditions are imposed, so that we know that that building, when it's put up, has met the exact positions of the minor variances granted. There is relief being asked in regard to the existing situation as far as zoning from the zoning bylaw. And one of the costs of getting that relief is making sure it meets with the application as submitted.
Could you not deal with, Mr. O'Neill, could you not deal with who did this survey for you and get them to verify that those are the posts type of thing, and then you go from there?
I can try. They're difficult to.
We have had, in fairness to us, I guess, in fairness to you, we want the building to go in the place that we've agreed on. And we have had numerous instances where that hasn't worked out, and so then you go another jackpot and and so that's why the issue probably has been brought up.
Yeah, it's interesting because when we built the cottage in 2018, there was a lot more conditions or instances where you would think staking of the corners would be important as far as septic, lot line setbacks, and so forth. And yet that wasn't required. This is, I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there. This just seems odd. I mean, like I said, the stakes are there. It's just it's a bit of measuring. Hopefully, I thought somebody on staff could assist, but.
Well, there are people who are licensed surveyors too that know a lot about this. I don't know who they are, but I know they're around there somewhere, so.
Yeah, actually, the name, Bishops, I think, was the name of the company that we used, to be honest.
Well, just to do our part, is someone prepared to make a motion before we either granting or denying the request? Mr. Bishop, Mr. Walker first.
Oh, I would make a motion that we accept or grant the variance as proposed, and that the conditions proposed stay in place.
Okay. Is there a second?
I would second that motion.
Mr. Bishop? All in favor? Waller? Okay.
Could I make a comment, please?
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't we get Mr. O'Neill to contact the surveyor to verify give him some time to verify the stakes that are there?
Well, hey, are you prepared to live with what you've asked for, Mr. O'Neill?
As far as what do you mean?
Well, like, is the building going to be where we're saying it's going to be?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Mr. McKechnie saying, do you want this deferred so you can get somebody to verify that those are the stakes and
If I get it deferred and then I still need to get the surveyor, chances are nothing will happen this year.
But can't you just get a hold of the surveyor and who did survey it and give you some type of another certificate stating that he verifies that this is the stakes are in the proper place?
I don't think you have to worry about it, because that's one of the conditions is that he verifies that that's what's there. So I'd say the ball's in your court with respect to that. Mr. Bishop?
Mr. Chair, I hope we're not having some confusion as to what stakes are in the ground. The question is, will the building be set off the line to the distances that are being applied for at this point in time? The corners of the proposed building are not staked with iron bars by any surveyor. This is a drawing. So when he does the digging of the footings and the pouring of them, they can vary from this drawing. And the only way we know that it is there correctly is for a surveyor to say that when those footings are in, they match at least this setback. The stakes that are in the ground are the stakes, I believe, of the lot survey, not necessarily the building location survey. I stand to be correct.
Okay. Let's deal with the question. The variance to permit a private garage to have a minimum rear lot setback of 3 meters or 9.84 feet, opposed to the required minimum of 7.5 meters or 24.61 feet is granted. Please indicate your support by holding up your hand. 1, 2, 3. It's granted. Variance permit a private garage to have a minimum street setback of 15 meters or 49.21 feet as opposed to the required minimum of 17.5 meters or 57.41 feet is granted. Please indicate your support for that. So you're good to go, Mr. Well, maybe Jeff wants to comment on that. Do you want to say something, Jeff?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through you, I just wanted to clarify the motion on the table was to with all recommended conditions. So I just want to ensure that the committee, the vote includes those conditions or whether they don't include those conditions. Is that with all conditions as recommended?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I just got to get the paperwork sorted out here. Okay, well, hopefully, sometimes you can avoid a lot of problems down the road if you do the thing right in the first place, and that's really what we're trying to get to. And I'm sure that the committee has supported you. So all we care is that the building goes with the setbacks that we've established today.
Okay,
So
thank
how
you.
you verify that, I guess, is.
Thank you.
If I were you, I'd pay for a survey, get it done, and then we've done it right, and then you carry on from there. But I
Okay.
can't get really involved in that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Okay, so where do we go here? Where's the I'm going, Jeff, have you got some papers on is he there?
Yeah, the next file on the agenda today is for the lands of Bowser, file D13 MV 2022-003. Are you looking for a resolutions, Chair, or are you looking for the agenda?
I'm looking for the record the mover and the seconder.
I did record them. It was moved by committee member Walker and it was seconded by committee member Bishop.
You've got that recorded?
Yep.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Thank you. Okay, next we're dealing with Mr. Bowser, roll number 060-000-47100. Is Mr. Bowser, is he joining us for the meeting?
Yes, we're just bringing him forward right now.
I didn't hear what you said, Jeff.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, we are bringing forward Mr. Bowser right now. Hi, Greg. I see you there. Can you?
Yep.
Can
Can you hear me now?
I hear you.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Bowser, perhaps you can just give us a quick synopsis of your request and the history of the request, and we'll carry on from there.
Absolutely. The request is 3 different minor variances in the construction of a garage with a dwelling above it. And I'm asking for the dwelling to be increased from the 45 square meters to 55 square meters. The reason I want to do that is I want to have a fairly large games room up there with a full-size snooker pool table and a poker table or card table and shuffleboard, things like that up there. And when I've done all the measurements and the calculations for it, that's the size I need for it to be, as well as a small bedroom in the one end of it. The second issue is with an existing deck that was attached to the property when I purchased it 20 some odd years ago, that I had no idea was not in compliance. I think it's out by about 8 inches into so I just want to bring that into compliance. There is also an outhouse on the property that I didn't realize was into the water setback as well, which I have no problem removing.
Okay. as far as the deck goes, did you get a permit when they built that deck?
It was on the building when I purchased it.
It was there.
It was existing,
Okay.
yeah. I think it was built, I think it was built the year that the cottage was built.
Yeah, well, you're not way out of whack there. Okay, so we're open for questions, gentlemen. If you just indicate your hand and we'll carry on from here. Mr. David Bishop.
Let's address, Mr. Chairman, this building permit. Does the township have evidence of the building permit on the cottage that at the time apparently this deck was created?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. We don't have record of any building permits for the subject lands. Our assessment records do indicate that that single-family dwelling was first assessed in 1975, which provides its legal status within the water setback. But we do not have record of any building permits for either the dwelling or the deck.
I think he can solve that by just saying he has to get a permit now. That's one of the conditions, depending what we do here. It's pretty minor, like we're talking about 6 or 8 inches here, aren't we? Something like that.
Correct.
what it
It's
is,
20 centimeters. 20
Yeah, well, put
centimeters.
that in real terms of thinking, what is that in inches and feet?
3/4 of a foot.
3/4 of a foot, so, okay. Well, if, depending what we do with the proposal, one of the conditions could be that he has to get a permit, and then we'll recognize that. I think, anyway, for the amount of distance involved. Anyway, let's deal with the variance with the square footage first, before we get into anything. Anybody got any questions on that? He's asking for gross floor area of 55 square meters or 592 square feet. And the exceeds permitted gross area of 45 square meters or 484 square feet. We've had lots of these, Mr. Bowser, many of them, and we have stuck fairly close to what the bylaws is stated. So I'll turn the rest over to the questions by the committee. Mr. David Bishop.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate your latter comment in that regard. What we have here is a situation where it might be granted to give a variance in this regard. And the plans as indicated by the applicant are for a games room to be attached to his sleeping quarters. And we find that subsequently these things change, and what it becomes is a secondary residence on a parcel of land. I just don't know how we can be ensured that the uses that are being suggested for this required expansive space are continually maintained. There's once the horse is out of the barn, the township has no recourse. The other side of it is this is about 105 square feet additional space to the bylaw, which is equivalent in lots of normal situations of a bedroom anyway. I appreciate that the gentleman wants to create maybe some kind of a man cave, but nothing stops it from later on being used as a secondary residence. How do we control that?
I don't know, but are you intending to put a washroom in this building, sir?
Yes, I am.
And what about cooking facilities?
No.
Mr. Walker?
I just think a clarification on the variance A and B. So are we dealing with two separate buildings here, or is this the same building? The request is to go to 400 or 592 square feet. I'm just kind of confused what A and B, what's the difference there? Jeff, maybe you could help me on that?
Yes, thank you. And through you, Chair, it's more of a technicality with our zoning bylaw. There's a section of the bylaw that pertains to private cabins. And then the following section pertains to two-story accessory buildings. And both sections make references to the private cabin maximum of 45 square meters and the second story of a two-story accessory building being 45 square meters. So the proposal is just for one building, with the second story / private cabin being 55 square meters. And if I can comment on Mr. Bishop's comments with regards to how to prevent future conversion to a dwelling. I think the committee should try and focus on the variance before them, which is, would they accept the private cabin to be 55 square meters instead of looking at the future? Staff are also concerned about that. During the building permit process and the septic process, the building department will review the submitted plans to make sure that they comply with the zoning bylaw and the definition of a private cabin. And unfortunately, if something happens after the fact, it would be up to our enforcement staff to begin enforcement action if it was converted.
Okay. Any further questions? Comments, Gerald?
Just in our, we've been inundated with a number of applications similar to this with the increase for the square footage. I know in a few cases we have allowed somewhat of a minor increase, but can't really remember at this rate of an increase. So I'm just trying to, if any committee members can kind of remember how we kind of dealt with this. Did we look at a percentage or was it case to case? Just kind of escaping me right now as to how we've treated past applications.
I think we've very seldom gone above 550 as opposed to 484.
Right. Okay.
So probably a good guideline to go to, but
yeah.
Mr. McKechnie?
Yes, if the applicant would compromise and go down to that figure, I'd have no problem with it.
How do the rest of you feel? Mr.
I would
Bishop?
be agreeable to a 550 if that's kind of a precedent we've been dealing with. I hate to change the rules too much. I can agree with 550.
I can,
And
I
as far-
concur, Chair.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Mr. Bishop.
I would concur in that concept because what we end up here is another building that's even larger than the main building.
No,
No, it's the same. Must be straight up, is it?
the upper floor,
Like it's a traditional two-story building, right?
the existing cottage or the
No.
proposed one?
The what you're asking for here.
Yeah, it's 2 stories straight up. Yeah.
Yeah, straight up. Yeah.
Yeah, with a vaulted roof in it. Yeah.
Can you live with that? Modify your plans a bit? You're gonna have to cut down a bit, but I mean, that's just, these bylaws are here for a reason.
Mhm.
And it's pretty obvious what you're gonna use it for. It's gonna be for extra people, right?
Yeah, well, it's going to be for me to get away from the wife is what it's going to be mostly.
Well, we all deal with that.
I mean, if that's the best I can do, then of course, yes, I would accept that. I would like to try and stay with the plans that I've got. It makes making the entire garage smaller on the bottom
So
side.
we're getting more and more of these requests to make larger buildings as outbuildings, and only the good Lord only made the lot so big, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and I believe I'm going to be well under 11% of the lot itself with the entire garage.
Meaning with the new building?
Yeah, when I add the new building in, I'll be under 11% of coverage with the
Yeah, so about
existing decks and everything. So I'm well under
Well, it
that.
sounds like we're prepared to do that. So would someone make a motion then? Jeff, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you. Before we proceed to a motion or a vote, again, I have proposed some conditions and I would
Okay.
just like to read out.
Read those off if you like.
Yep, and first I would just like to note that the variance was circulated as required by the Planning Act, and that no comments were received. Again, 4 conditions are being proposed. The first 3 are always the standard conditions, that the variance applies to the accessory building as shown on the property sketch. The second condition is the shoreline tree preservation bylaw that the injuring or destruction of trees within 30 meters of the high water mark is not permitted of course, with exceptions in the bylaw, and that further additional shoreline planting be encouraged. The third condition is during construction, proper site preparation and construction methods be used. Basically sediment fencing down gradient of the construction site. And lastly, prior to the issuance of a building permit, that the outhouse located within the water setback and encroaching on the neighboring property be removed, which Mr. Bowser has said he's been willing to do. So that's it.
And so are we going to, are we okay, or is the committee okay with restricting him to, with his deck, to get that into compliance? If he gets a building permit for it, that we'll accept that? Okay.
Great.
Okay, I need a mover and a seconder. Mr. Walker,
So I'll move that the variance A and B, that the request be reduced from 592 to 550
right,
for A and B. And if you want something for the deck, I can do that. That it be, since it's just to make it legal, I don't have a problem, so I would move that we grant that as well. I don't see the purpose of having a building permit for it because it was built years and years and years ago, but that's only my thought.
well, the township's a little hard up for money, so. He just deferred it for 5 years or something like that. I think it's an easy way to do the thing.
I believe that,
We'll accept it.
Mr. Chair, I
Is there a
believe that,
seconder for this motion?
I do.
Weller?
Excuse me, Chair, the applicant does have a question.
I believe in the deck, it's only one corner of it that is encroaching in that 20 centimeters. I mean, I would be easier just to cut 20 centimeters off the deck in that one corner to bring it into
Well, how about we
compliance.
just say you make how about you just say you make it compliant?
Sure.
Okay, no, we'll accept that. Take the corner out. Okay, we ready to go there? So it's been moved and seconded that a variance to section 3-1 to permit a gross floor area of a private cabin to be 55 square meters or 550 square feet. I don't know what the meters, how many meters is that, Jeff? We're gonna
bear
call
with me
it
just-
550 square feet.
We'll
Right.
tell you, just give me 1 second, please.
I have no idea.
I'll just change this to 550, which exceeds the
Just,
promoted
we can
gross
put
area of
51.5
484.
square meters.
The variance of section 3.1 permit the gross floor area of a second story of accessory building to be 550 square feet as opposed to the permitted 484.
Right.
And put a condition in there, Jeffrey, that he's going to bring we're going to grant him the variance for his deck, that it brings it into compliance. Okay?
Sorry, so if he's not, if he's gonna bring it into compliance, would we not just deny the variance?
Yeah, we don't need the variance.
What?
If the applicant
cuts
intends
the
to
corner
bring
of
the
the deck
deck
off-
into compliance, would we not just deny the minor variance?
Yeah, it doesn't need that variance.
Means he's gonna, yeah. He's not gonna get a permit, he's gonna make it compliant.
Right.
Well, okay? Sir?
Yeah, that's fine with me if that's what it takes. Yeah, it's not going to make much difference on the deck at all.
Yeah, Wow.
I mean, I think it's kind of I had no idea it was like that. And obviously whoever built it didn't know it was like that either, way back when.
We're going to deny your request for the deck.
Okay,
But it's just going to say that you're going to make it compliant.
okay.
Okay? Okay,
Yep.
Jeff?
I got
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Okay, we're good to go, and you're good to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Have we got, was that Mr. Bowser? Is that who that was? Oh, yeah, so we got this thing here. Okay. Planning report. Yeah. So the next person is Tom Partridge. Is he hooked in?
Give us 1 minute, Chair, and we'll bring him in.
Any luck? He's there?
Mr. Partridge, we've seen that you've joined the meeting. Could you unmute yourself and turn on your video, please?
He doesn't seem to be with us.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Oh, here he is. Welcome to the meeting.
Good morning. How was everyone this morning?
Oh, we're great.
That's good. That's good.
Well, start it off and make a little speech about what you want to do here.
I will make a little speech saying I pretty much want to do exactly what the last gentleman wanted to do, with a
I
two-story.
figured that
Yeah, I bet you have. We do understand our family's expanding, and we just need a little bit more room. We need a garage for our toys. So we're going to do that. And we figured we'd put a bedroom and washroom and small workout room above that. It's quite a bit bigger than what the allowable was. It's 77 square feet as opposed to the 45. Looking at past meetings and the one that we just went through, it looks like 51.5 square meters or 550 square feet seems to be what everyone is comfortable with, just so we can kind of keep this the way I think it should be done. I am more than willing, we are more than willing and agreeable to cut back the second story to 550 square feet. We'll revise the plans accordingly and go from there. There was also mention of we had a covered boat area and gazebo and shed and that on the dock. That needs to be removed. We're in the process of that. One of them has been, the other one we've had the roof taken off and we're getting ready to get that out of there, and then the weather hit. So we weren't able to do that this fall, but that is the intention, is that everything gets removed. And we will be doing
compliant.
then we'd be totally in compliance. That's exactly it. So, and that's the plan. And that's what we were doing. So, that's about it. It's going to be used as a private cabin. It's not going to be used as separate rental or anything like that. If that was the case, we would have put it much further away from the house, which we didn't need to. So, that's pretty much about it.
Comments, questions and comments. Mr. Bishop?
Mr. Chair, the applicant has, through you, confirmed that he is willing to alter the application to make it an application to the 550 square feet, and that he will comply with the conditions that are set forth on the report of the staff. I don't see where there's question to be raised. This is a cooperative applicant in that regard, and on the basis of that amendment, I would make a motion to proceed with approval of the applicant, subject to any comments that might come from our Secretary Treasurer.
Okay, is there a seconder for the motion? Gerald Walker,
I'll second that.
questions or comments? We're glad you listened in. Saves a lot of,
I'm glad I listened in as well.
most of the time at home when my wife listens in, it's never that easy to settle, so.
Oh, she's here too. She's listening in as well.
Jeff has
I think Jeff has a comment.
Jeffrey, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just like to do my spiel for you and provide that the notice and circulation requirements have been completed as per the Planning Act. We did receive one public comment and that was from the neighboring property owner. He is here today and would like to speak to the committee. So if you allow us, Chair, we'll bring forward the neighboring property owner at this time.
I didn't hear your last part.
If you allow, we're going to bring forward the neighboring property owner to speak at this time.
What did he say?
on the neighboring property to speak to this.
Well, let's do the motion first, okay?
No, I have to hear the-
You want to do the conditions first?
No,
Yeah, before we go to the vote, there is a member of the public that wishes to speak on this file. So if we could give him the opportunity to speak, that would be great. And
Oh,
Mr. Dave Buchanan's on the screen now.
okay, I didn't realize, I'm sorry, sir, I didn't see you there.
That's okay. Thank you, Chair, and thank you.
If you'd like to add any comments, you go right ahead.
Thank you,
Sorry about
Jeff. and
that.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd like to first start out that, yes, we're neighbors of the Partridges, and Tom and Jan have been very communicative with their plans and their scheduling to us, and we certainly do appreciate that. Our concern centered around the thinning out of the trees between the two properties because of this structure that was being proposed, because it was oversized. Our concerns are certainly diminished as the size of the structure gets closer and closer to the bylaws, the current bylaws. So that's really all I have to say.
So if he goes to the smaller building, is that acceptable to you?
Yes, our concerns would certainly be diminished, absolutely.
Okay. Well, we're glad to hear that. We got to keep happy neighbors. Was there anyone else that's scheduled in to speak to this application? Well, thank you very much. Jeff, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I do have some conditions to read out if you'll allow me to do that now.
We know you always have conditions.
There's 5 proposed conditions for the applicant's attention and for the committee's consideration. The first 3, again, are the standard conditions for all variances. The variance as shown on the property sketch. The County of Haliburton has a tree preservation bylaw relating to the removal of trees within 30 meters of the high water mark. During construction, proper site preparation and construction methods are to be used to prevent sedimentation of the adjacent lake. The 2 additional conditions being proposed, number 4, is prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicants must supply proof that the shed located on the dock and the gazebo and boat cover have been removed. And lastly, that the applicant agrees that the dwelling and private cabin are not to be used as separate rental opportunities.
Gerald?
Jeff, was there, as in our previous, this building is going to be built, that we have to have proof from an OLS? Was that one of the conditions?
no.
No, the square footage of the building will be determined through the building permit process, so it will be reviewed by the building department.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, Mr. Partridge?
Just have a quick question. It says prior to the one of the conditions was prior to the issuance of a building permit. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that stuff off before the snow flies or the snow clears, just because of sheer volume of snow this year. We've already started and got one off. We've almost got the second one off, and the third one is coming off. It's just a little wee plastic shed is all it is. I'd like to get in for the building permit and get that rolling. We already actually have a foundation permit. We were just waiting to get the balance of it until we were through this process. Is that something that I could do, is just get that done and then make it a condition that we just show everybody that we have done it, but still be able to get the building permit beforehand? I just want to get going first thing in the spring is all.
Yeah, I respect that. What do you think about that, Joe?
So are you asking me?
I didn't hear you.
Oh, sorry, are you asking me, Chair? Well, the reason that we do propose that is just to ensure that the structures are removed. We like to tie it to something like a building permit, just as it gives the municipality some leverage. If there's no leverage, then it may become an administrative burden for the municipality, because then we may have to use up staff time to enforce this. So it's up to the committee whether they wish to remove that portion of the condition, but that's the reason for the recommendation.
Mr. Bishop, then Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Possibly you could consider, Mr. Chair, that before the township bylaw officer would be signing off on this, that these other conditions had been complied with. The only other one is before it enters into a particular stage of building, that they be complied with. I don't know, Mr. Walker is quite apprised of these kind of conditions. Maybe he would have a comment in that regard.
Yeah.
If I may, we could say prior to occupancy, if that satisfies the committee.
That was going to be my point, either tie it to the final inspection or occupancy. That does give some leeway and still does make sure that it is done. That's a good point.
Yeah, I think we can do that. Just put it as part of the final inspection.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you, sir? Yes?
Completely understandable and fantastic. I appreciate that very much.
Okay, well, we'll vote on before we get too excited, we'll vote on the motion.
Fair enough.
This decision with respect to file D13 MV 2021-025, variance to section 3.1 to permit the gross area of a private cabin to be 550 square feet, which exceeds the permitted gross area of 484 square feet. Granted? Please indicate by holding your hand. And variance to section 3.1 to permit the gross area of a second story of an accessory building to be 550 square feet, which exceeds the permitted gross area of 484 square feet. Granted? Carried. You're good to go, sir. Thank you for your cooperation and thanks for listening in.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And you gentlemen have a good day.
You bet. Same to you.
Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Partridge, he's done. So, Partridge. Mr. Walker, so he's excusing himself from the meeting.
Yes, I'll be signing off and I'll talk to you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
You can phone later. What?
So
You're signing out.
I'm trying to get out of here.
We ain't the boxing gloves out here now, so.
Jerry, there should be a leave button that you could.
Oh, the leave. There it is. Okay. See you. Thank you very much. I'm
Thank
gone.
you. Have a good day.
So there's been a pretty complete report provided to us by Mr. Walker with the consultant he used and numerous other things. Hopefully we've had a chance to read it, which I have, I'm sure you have. And basically it comes down to asking for a decreased provision of 5.2 to permit a single family dwelling in a suburban residential zone to have a minimum water setback of 78 feet as opposed to 98.4. So we're open for discussion with respect to that. I think
If I could bring it to your attention, Chair, Stephanie Sharp from Repoy Planning and Associates is here to speak on behalf of the applicant.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, well, she did a pretty good report, so we'll be looking forward to hearing from you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to hear the application today. I'm Stephanie Sharp, planner for Marie Poirier Planning and Associates, and as you are aware, the authorized agent for Mr. Walker respecting planning matters related to his property located at 1956 Wigamog Road. The purpose of this application, as you mentioned, is to reduce the shoreline yard setback for the principal dwelling. The zoning bylaw requires a 30-meter setback for the shoreline, and this application seeks approval for a 24-meter setback, being a 6-meter variance. The proposed development utilizes the existing level cleared area on the property and ensures mature trees in the rear yard are maintained. In addition to the planning justification report submitted, a scoped EIS was prepared by Gord Nielsen, whereby their report concludes that subject to the recommendations incorporated, they are of the opinion that the proposed redevelopment plans are fully supportable. The subject development will be connected to the municipal sanitary services, and therefore there will be no phosphorus loading on the account of the sewage requirements. I would like to substantiate that there is evidence that the subject property was historically developed, and if the structures remain today, the permitted setback is 20 meters in accordance with section 5.1.2 of the official plan. This policy is also echoed in a footnote of the table 5.2 in the municipal zoning bylaw. All other provisions of the zoning bylaw will be maintained. Given this policy direction and the character of the surrounding properties, the proposed setback maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. Numerically speaking, the requested variance is 6 meters from the zoning bylaw standard of 30 meters. The surrounding properties enjoy a 20-meter setback. From a review of the aerial mapping, the proposed setback for the dwelling is in character with the surrounding properties. As such, the application is appropriate and desirable for the use of the land. Further, given there is evidence that this property had been developed and the proposed setback is in character with the surrounding development, the requested setback is minor in nature. Notably, 4 neighboring property owners have submitted letters of support. It is our firm's opinion that the application meets the 4 tests for minor variance pursuant to section 45(1) of the Planning Act. We concur with staff that the application maintains the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, is minor in nature and appropriate and desirable for the development and use of the land. We agree with the implementation of the conditions as outlined, as they will ensure the recommendations of the EIS are implemented appropriately. However, we kindly request a minor amendment to condition 11, which states, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the existing deck and shed located on the property are to be removed or brought into compliance with the zoning bylaw. Due to the deck being along the shoreline, we are requesting on behalf of Mr. Walker that the reconstruction of the deck be tied to final occupancy, similar to that of the tree plantings. This will ensure the construction along the shoreline is undertaken at an appropriate time. Thank you for taking the time to hear this application today. I respectfully request approval of the application and am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for joining us and thank you for the information. It was a very good report. Would you have any questions for this lady? David Bishop?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From the information provided through this agent on behalf of Mr. Walker, can you confirm whether or not the front line of the building will actually be behind or at least parallel to the front line of the building? When I say front line, I'm talking the lakeshore line, the front line of the neighboring residents to the west. That as we were facing the lake, it would be the person to the right. When I looked at this piece of property earlier, I saw that that building I thought was approximately 25 meters, but I was just doing it by eye. Do you have any information in that regard?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, we do utilize the mapping that's available online. Of course, it's not the most accurate. It's not the same as having a surveyor go stake the setback, but it is approximately 20 meters from the shoreline. So it's within the realm of what our request is today. It certainly won't be impacted or be closer to the shoreline by, or our proposal won't be closer to the shoreline than the existing building line. The intention is to maintain the existing building line. So the setback proposed is similar to that of the surrounding dwellings. We can't say it is exactly the same, but it was, of course, the intent that it is consistent with the neighboring property.
Okay, any other questions? Are we ready for the question? Be resolved, the committee's decision with respect to file D13 MV 2021-018 be recorded as follows. A decreased provision of section 5.2 to permit a single-family dwelling in the suburban residential zone to have a minimum water setback of 24 meters or 78 feet, as opposed to the required minimum of 30 meters or 98.4 feet. Can we have a mover for that? And a seconder? Walter McKechnie moved it. And David Bishop seconded it.
All, of course, Mr. Chair, I presume subject to the conditions that were referred to by Ms. Sharp and are enclosed in the report of the Mr. Walker. Or Mr. Hiles, I beg your pardon.
Jeff, you want to have you got any conditions?
I have a
Don't
few
know how
for you.
can have a condition of this brand new outfit.
And if you allow me, I would like just to summarize the public comments we've received to date too. So,
Oh, I'd like to hear them. Okay.
thank you. Thank you for the committee's consideration. The notice of the variance was circulated to all agencies as required by the Planning Act. As of the date of this report, we have received 4 letters of support. An email was received from a neighboring property owner, Julie Moynes, who has no concerns with the requested variance. Similarly, we received emails from the neighboring property owners, Leonard and Angela Jones, Dan and Libby Blair, as well as Jennifer and Mike Wilson, who all have no concerns with regards to the requested variance. And I ask for your patience at this time because I am going to read through the conditions. For the most part, these conditions are taken straight from the environmental impact study that was submitted with the application. So bear with me, I'm going to read through them. There are 11 proposed conditions, and as Ms. Sharp has noted, she's requested an amendment to the final condition. So I'll start with condition number 1. Again, it is the standard condition, noting that the variance applies to the water setback as shown on the property sketch. The second condition is with regards to the county shoreline tree preservation bylaw. The third condition states, with the exception of a minor tree removal to accommodate a shoreline deck to be built at the location of the existing deck and a maximum 1.5 meter pathway / stairway down to that deck, all of the existing trees within 15 meters of the shoreline are to be retained. Condition number 4, prior to the occupancy of the dwelling, 15 native trees and 20 shrubs shall be planted in accordance with the planting plan dated February 16th, 2022, and attached to and forming part of this decision. No maintenance management approach shall be applied within the shoreline setback to allow additional naturalization of the area over time. Condition 5, the shoreline deck shall be founded on helical piles of a similar support system, or a similar support system that avoids any excavation and minimizes soil disruption, and be undertaken by someone familiar with working in sensitive shoreline settings. These works are to be or to incorporate all appropriate precautions to prevent against soil material entering the lake. Condition 6, prior to development, proper site preparation and construction methods are to be used to prevent sedimentation of the adjacent lake. Heavy-duty sediment fencing shall be properly installed down gradient of the development and up gradient of the tree riparian zone. The fencing is to be inspected on a weekly basis by the owner or their contractor until such time as all gradient activities have been completed and all disturbed lands have been properly stabilized. Any required repairs to the silt fence are to be made immediately. The next condition, excavation shall be completed in as short of time as possible, with disturbed areas then to be quickly graded out and stabilized. The next condition, stockpiling of soils during construction should be very temporary, less than a week, and should occur to the rear of the home, more than 40 meters back from the lake. Condition number 9, stormwater must be directed to naturally vegetated areas from which it must have a minimum 25-meter flow path over vegetated areas before being able to enter the lake. In no circumstance is such drainage to be channelized or piped towards the lake. Condition 10, prior to the pouring of footings for the proposed dwelling, the applicant must supply confirmation from an Ontario land surveyor that the dwelling complies with the water setback as granted by the committee. And the last condition, I'll read it as I've proposed it, and then I'll outline Ms. Sharp's proposed amendment. So staff have proposed that prior to the issuance of a building permit, the existing deck and shed located on the property are to be removed or brought into compliance with the zoning bylaw. My understanding is that the building's already been removed, and Ms. Sharp's asked that that condition be amended to say prior to occupancy, that deck be removed or brought into compliance. And that's it, and I appreciate your patience, and if you have any
Do you
questions.
think you'll have any money left by the time he's done all those conditions there? Guess that's not our problem. Mr. Bishop, you wish to comment?
I think it's quite simple at this point in time, Mr. Chair, that last condition read by Mr. Isles be amended to say prior to occupancy.
Okay. So the resolution that I read is moved by Mr. McKechnie and second by Mr. Bishop, is granted. Please indicate yes. Well, thank you very much for your input, ma'am, and I think this is the second time that you've been ahead of or with us for not too far back. So very complete report. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Okay. I need a move to adjourn. Walter McKechnie and David Bishop at 12:30 p.m. Is that the correct time? 12:30? 12:30 p.m.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. We're done.